Welcome everyone to Future Worlds Demo Day 2022. It's been so long. There's definitely no need to clap me, but it's been so long since we've all been together. It's been great to just catch up with loads of people out in the Expo. It's been great to see so many familiar faces, people that we've just seen on Zoom for the last 2 years. It's just been so good to get back in person, see people face to face. So hopefully you've had a chance to get around and see a load of the startups out in the foyer in that Expo area. But it's just great to now finally be all back in a room together. But of course, we're not all back in a room. Many of us are scattered across the world, unable to be in the room today because they're in San Francisco, they're across the US, they're across Europe, they're wherever they may be. And so this evening, it is all about great startup founders pitching to a network of great mentors, investors, and partners wherever they are. Whether they're on Zoom and catching up with this through the recording that will be out on YouTube, or whether they're here in person in the room, it doesn't matter. It's all about a network of people supporting great, brilliant, talented founders to go on journeys, and journeys that can take them anywhere, but they all start here. And I hope that's partly what you got through meeting some of the startups out in the foyer. Whether those are the startups that we'll be pitching today, 5 great startups, or whether it's startups that have come through Future Worlds from the University of Southampton over the last few years, and you've seen the journeys that they have gone on and where they have got to. Because of course, all of the journeys have to start somewhere, but they can go on to incredible things. And partly that is why in 2 weeks' time, this cohort of people that are going to be standing on this stage will then be standing on that bridge, because we're all going to be flying out to San Francisco, where we're then going to be pitching to the network of investors and mentors and partners out there in Silicon Valley. We're going to be meeting with some of the greatest startups that there are around, and really trying to plug into the ecosystem of startups, the global hub of startups that has seen so many success stories come through. And the reason that we're going there is not only because there's a network there that can enable, that can help to propel people forward, it's because the quality of the startups that are coming from here in Southampton can stand shoulder to shoulder with the best in the world. So why not go there and join with them? So that's where these startups are going to be going. This is a great opportunity to see them first, their first kind of public airing of some of what they're working on. So we're hoping there's going to be a really exciting day today. Hopefully you've already had lots of excitement. For those of you that are sitting in the front, we hope that you can also stick around afterwards, and we'll look forward to catching up with you afterwards in the reception. Because we're back in person, of course, that means there's a few basics that we need to cover, like fire safety. There's no fire alarm that's planned for today. Your nearest exit, some at the back, and there is also an exit at the front. Some of the issues that we don't have with Zoom. But you're here to meet startups. You're here to see founders of absolutely incredible startups. That's what it's all about. You're not about listening to me waffling on and talking about what we do. It's all about what these great founders do. And so in case you missed some of the founders in the Expo, in case you didn't get a chance to see what they were doing, we've got a short video of some of the founders that you may have already met.
Radii CO2 enables chemical manufacturers to derive high-value chemical intermediates using their CO2 emissions. This is projected to save manufacturers up to 30% in costs, as well as increasing their sustainability. Radii CO2 is seeking to engage with investors to support a £1 million seed round. This will support our continued scaling successes and early adopter demonstrations.
Fourier Audio is bringing the software revolution to live audio. Good live sound currently relies on specialised hardware and good sound engineers. We are building a software platform that will democratise live audio for global events. So far, we have raised 170k of pre-seed funding, a smart grant from Innovate UK of 326k, and £50,000 from the Royal Academy of Engineering for my Enterprise Fellowship. Our first product, Rewind, has also been featured on productions in Broadway and the West End, as well as at the Winter Olympics. Today, I'm looking to meet with investors interested in joining our £1 million seed round later this year.
We are Aquark Technologies, and we're focusing on the miniaturization and portability of quantum technology. We have just finished raising our pre-seed round, and after only 1 year of development, we have completed our minimum viable product, a shoebox size called Atom System. A system that used to occupy an entire room can now be picked up and used in real-life applications. We're now planning to deploy this into a real sensor, so we're looking to engage with collaborators and clients to join us on this amazing journey.
ArchAI uses AI to automatically detect archaeological sites on Earth observation data. Our assessments are available at the earliest planning stages, which speeds up and de-risks construction projects. We are working with customers like the Forestry Commission and the National Trust, and we will soon be able to offer national maps that will make our assessments available to any developer. We would like to connect to anyone working in early stage development, such as landowners, local authorities, and developers.
If you're interested in connecting with any of the startups that you've seen in Demo Day, then make sure you use info@futureworlds.com. The link is in the description.
But now is the time to bring on the first startup. So welcome to the stage, Sam Monday with Data Revival.
Thanks, Ben. Thanks, everybody. So Data Revival is an AI platform that can extract, process, and query any type of chemical information from anywhere within the chemical industry. And it isn't unfair to say that the vast majority of chemical insight, the vast majority of the answers to the questions we face today are currently going unused or underused because they're trapped in filing cabinets, they're in lab books, they're across geographical locations. And even that knowledge, even those books that have been found, even those books that have been digitized, they cannot be leveraged at scale because chemists, we use funny symbols. We have chemical reaction schemes and chemical structures that tell far more information than the text around them. We link these structures to values in tables, but these values in tables don't mean anything unless we know how they've been recorded. And this example here is from a partner who is developing the next generation of green solvents. Green solvents that are going to save hundreds of millions of tons of CO2 every year. Green solvents that aren't going to pollute our water supplies and aren't going to destroy our ecology. But this project with them cannot even get off the ground. It cannot even start without Data Revival being involved first. And this is what we're about. We've built a system, a chemically aware AI system, by chemists for chemists. It can extract this chemistry, it can process it, it can structure it, and it can give it back to those who need it at their fingertips. And we're already seeing how valuable this is. We've run 2 very successful pilots, including a pilot with a multinational European chemical company. We've been funded 4 times, about to be 5, twice by academia and twice by industry, and we're in talks with 5 of the very large companies, some of whose logos you see behind us. And we're in talks with them to see how our technology can add value to their business processes. And the reason they're coming to us, the reason they're choosing Data Revival is, yes, we can do the character extraction, yes, we can do the language processing, but we're experts in chemistry. It's only us that's been able to build an AI that can understand and contextualize this chemistry. And we're world leading in being able to process the structures and the reaction schemes and everything that goes along with it. And we're moving into quite a big market. On average, a chemical company will be spending 5% of their revenue every single year on digitalization practices. That's roughly $200 billion worldwide. And the global digital chemistry market that we're joining is growing 22% year on year, predicted to be worth about $65 billion by the end of 2030. We'll be entering this market as a cloud-based enterprise solution. We'll have a fixed fee per user per month, and the current work that we're doing in our pilots and case studies is helping us validate the pricing point that we will go with. But early indications are indicating a 90 to 95% gross margin. So we're asking for £300,000. so that we can grow the team, so that we can leverage the opportunities that have already come our way, and so that we can go after new, bigger, and better ones. It will enable us to buy the infrastructure and the equipment that we need to keep innovating at the pace that we're innovating. And it will enable us to grow and run the business. It will give us an 18-month runway. By month 6, we will be beta testing. Month 9, we will be customer ready. Month 12, we will be making revenue. And by month 18, we'll be completing our second investment round. Leading this charge will be myself, Samuel Munday, and my co-founder, Professor Jeremy Frey. Jeremy has over 40 years' experience working in chemistry, 25 years working in the digital chemistry field. He's worked with Nobel Prize winners. He's a visionary who has led the AI for Scientific Discovery network for the last 5 years, a network whose reputation needs no introduction. And I've been working with Jeremy for the last 5 years. I have a background in chemistry, but my heart is really in software development. I lecture software development at Southampton University and Oxford University. I've worked in the industry and seen firsthand some of the problems that I've described here today. But don't just take my word for how good we are. Take the word of an organization who have not only fundamentally changed the face of science and technology on this planet, but who have fundamentally changed the face of science and technology on the planets above our head. Take the word of NASA when they say that Data Revival is doing far more advanced work in this area than us. Take the word of NASA when they say that the innovations that we have achieved at Data Revival go above and beyond the innovations they've achieved with their own File Observatory project. So come and join us and continue innovating. Come and join us at Data Revival. Thank you.
Thank you, Sam. Strong pitch. So there's a chance for those of you on the front rows to ask some questions while you're thinking perhaps of your first one. I'm going to kick things off. So you say this is a big problem, but how much chemistry is out there unused and locked up?
There's a huge amount of chemistry out there. To give a very small example, just our chemistry department here had over 2,000 chemist years worth of work sat in their lab books going underused. Some of the partners that we've been working with in the chemical industry, we've processed rooms the size of this room full of their lab books, and we've been able, in 12 months, to find chemicals that their teams were unable to find themselves. Going out into the wider world, just to repeat some of the chemistry that has been done over the last few decades, some of you may know the company ICI, it would cost over $200 billion to recreate that chemistry. And so we're going after all of that.
So, any questions from the room? Ruben, you've got a question. The microphone's coming straight to you.
Hi, great pitch, really good, nice deck too. Just a question for you, quick question. What traction do you have today? So what best evidence do you have that it really works?
So the traction that we have so far and our best evidence is the pilot that we've ran with our multinational chemical company partner. They turn over $2.1 billion in revenue. We've run a very successful pilot processing a relatively small number of their documents, and they're in the current stages of digitizing the rest of their archive. And we're in negotiations with them at the moment for what our relationship might look like going forwards.
Any other questions? Looking at these front rows. Dylan.
Cheers, great pitch, Sam. My question is about, you said you were in talks with, was it 5 companies? Wondering what the stages of those talks are. Have you got any revenue or any contracts signed at all?
No, so we don't have the contract signed with them, but these are companies that have come to us to inquire about what we're doing. And we are only a small team, so we're taking it as a first come, first served basis and trying to build out from the traction and the successes that we've already had. But the fact that they are coming and talking to us and the fact that we are keeping them warm is that we just, once we grow, we'll be ready to execute on that.
Great. Toby's got a question up there.
Thanks, Sam. Really enjoyed your pitch. How much is the company willing to give away for your 300K?
I think that really depends on what else the investor brings to the party. So we are also looking for a big network. If this is going to work at scale, we need to get into America. We need to have access to the sorts of people that are we need to have that champion that is going to put us in front of all the big companies. So if someone bought all of that, we would give a higher amount away. If someone bought less, we'd give a lower amount. I'll probably catch up with you about that afterwards.
Plenty of time to talk afterwards as well when we get into that level of detail. Jeff, looks like you've got a question.
Yeah, Sam, that was a fantastic pitch. It really was. Just one question. Have you looked at a corporate partner as a possible investor for you? That company you mentioned at the beginning that you've worked with, could they be somebody that could come in as an initial investor?
Absolutely, yes. So this is something that we are sort of engaged with at the moment and thinking about and how that might work for us. There are a few things that we do want to do with the company that might make that less palatable, but it's absolutely something that we are thinking about going forwards. And not just with the organisation that I spoke about, there is one other that we are also engaged with about this.
Oh, James, you got a question there as well?
Thank you. Very, very good pitch. Just trying to understand what your commercial model for your contracts are. I mean, how are you going to price your data and your time? Is it going to be per period of usage or per volume of data? Have you got any idea of how that commercial model will work? Thank you.
So yeah, it's a great question. And some of the case studies that we're running at the moment internally and some of the pilots that we're running are helping us answer this. It very much seems that we need to have, when companies engage with us, they have to know what it's going to cost. And therefore, we'll price it based on, well, how much information do they need, do they have, and what is it that they want to get out of that information? There are kind of different stages to this. It could be that someone just wants the information extracting, moving to somewhere else. If they then want to have to query this information, well, then obviously that would be a higher fee.
Any other questions? In which case, Sam, thank you very much indeed. Another round of applause for Sam.
Thank you very much.
It's time for the next startup. So welcome to the stage, Michael, Matthew, and Claire with Graffinity.
Thanks, Ben. Hello to everyone. I'm Matthew, co-founder of Graffinity. If a picture tells 1,000 words, Graffinity tells 1,000,000. It takes your text or audio or video, extracts and maps it, finds the key connections, makes them searchable, and then gives you a visual summary so that your brain can understand it in an instant. Graffinity visualizes knowledge. As a journalist, it feels like I've spent my life scrolling through articles, interviews, podcasts, trying to find that key fact or quote. Control F only takes you so far. We need the text, but it's getting lost. How do we find it faster, make it more shareable, especially in a world where if you go on the internet, much of the information that you get is presented in a text-based or linear fashion. Visualization drives traction. We see it with the tools being used by content creators and journalists now. They need these tools, and during the pandemic, we saw the slides and the graphs. Next slide, please. This is an extract from a Washington Post article, a beautiful visualization that was shared widely of how coronavirus spreads. So, Graffinity takes us from this, if you can read this fast, you're fine, to this. How do we unlock these archives of information? Over to Michael.
So, a journalist, for example, imports their documents, audio or video files. The Graffinians here go to work, extracting and connecting the key entities such as people, places, events, and visualizes them. Our USP is the way we connect and contextualize information so you can easily find what you're looking for. We take information from multiple sources, layering them on top of one another to build one large knowledge graph that can be searched and explored. And we produce powerful visualizations that make it really simple to comprehend the information. And finally, with tooling for curating and publishing these visualizations, we've turned this into a social experience. We'll use natural language processing, or NLP, to automate the creation of our knowledge graph. And we can train the NLP to work with any source of unstructured data, like documents, web pages, audio, and video. As a proof of concept, we built a knowledge graph by layering Wikipedia on top of Wikidata with something like 6 million entities and 90 million connections. And we've also created a web tool for searching and exploring the knowledge graph, from which users can create their own graph-based visualizations to share with the world. Notice here how the context for each entity and connection is clearly visible. We're currently testing this with a select group of users and gaining valuable feedback from that. Future iterations of the tool will allow users to switch on and off the various layers and also to move through time so you can see the most relevant connections at different points in history. Our enterprise solution will offer premium functionality like collaboration and advanced analytics and reporting. So how do we make money from this? Over to Claire.
We are a freemium platform. Our solution has range, but in the first phase, we are aimed at media and content creators to build our Graffinity community. They are the target, as power users driving premium subscriptions, both for sharing and research of their work. Chosen due to our background in media and also because of their high profile and engaging content. A profile that is a brilliant introduction to enterprises. We have validation of knowledge graphs through our conversations with media organizations such as the New York Times. We have a pilot in July with an international newspaper, and we are in discussion with a global media bureau who is interested in our approach to layering. The creator economy has doubled in the last 3 years and is set to continue. With over 50 million active users and 2 million of them professional, their growth and success is reflected in the platforms that support them, such as sharing, visualization, transcription, and speech-to-text tools. We are a dream team, a crucial combination of innovation, technology, and communications. We have Matthew Pryor, an innovative entrepreneur and journalist. We have Michael Cleary, a technologist with a background in financial and other applications. And we have me, Claire McNaughton, a marketing communications guru with over 30 years' experience.
We're raising 250K for 15% of a 1.6 million pre-money valuation. We'll use that over the next 12 months to finish building the platform and to develop the community, first through journalists and then through the content creator influencers. In 5 years' time, everyone will be connecting and visualizing information like this. We don't want to wait. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. So another chance for questions to Matthew, Michael, and to Claire. I'm going to kick things off. So you talk about this huge community of content creators, 50 million, 2 million of them are professional. How are you going to convert those into customers paying for you?
Okay, we've got two go-to-market strategies. First is the freemium model, which we will be targeting content creators and journalists through social media channels, building a community where they can share their work. And then we'll have service as a solution, approaching enterprises such as the New York Times to see how we can work with them to unleash their archive and make it more searchable. We know that Flourish, one of our competitors, has just recently been bought by Canva. They're a visualization platform in a slightly different way to us, but they had over 900,000 users. They created 90 million visualizations that had 20 billion views.
Okay, so there's a lot of interest in this area. Any questions from the floor? Dylan? And then Chris over there. So if we go Dylan and then Chris.
Hey guys, great pitch. My question is about your tech. How far along is the development, and how confident are you you'll be able to deliver on the NLP that you need to create the knowledge graphs automatically?
So the development so far has been focused on getting, processing the data from Wikipedia and Wikidata and building a knowledge graph like that, and then building the web tool. And that's close to, as I said, we're sort of testing that. There's a few rough edges, a bit of a way to go, but that's the sort of the most advanced part of it. The NLP at this stage is theoretical, so we don't have data science skills on the team or the bandwidth at the moment to do that. But we know what the technology is capable of, and we know that we also know it's not perfect. The NLP will get you. Anyone who's used Google Translate, for example, knows that it gets you so far, and then you have to sort of do some of the work yourself. So that's why having a community of people, of creators, to sort of enrich and sort of correct some of the errors that come out of the NLP will be crucial for us. But yeah, that's what we're going to be sort of needing the sort of the funding for over the next 12 months to start looking at that side of things.
Great, and then Chris.
Hi guys, that was a great pitch. I just wondered about the IP. What IP do you have in place at the moment? And are there any issues over IP when you're using this data from other sources, you're repackaging it for the companies or whatever? Are there issues there that you may have to address, or compliance?
It's a great question. We don't have any IP around what we've produced, except that it's our code, so there's a copyright attached to the code. The second part of the question, I can't remember what was the second part of the question. I think with everything we're using at the moment, there's fair access, and so anything that you can, what we're selling in the end is the use of the platform. So we're not selling the information will either be imported from people who are importing their own data, but the data that we've got on the knowledge base at the moment has a sort of fair access, fair use policy, and we're not selling that data on. So.
Anyone else? Yeah, Adrian, can we get a microphone? Sorry, of course. Oh, sorry. Perhaps hand it back forward, won't the other?
Hi, how long does that money last? What's the runway and burn rate of your cash?
So the money, it gives us 12 months of runway, and as Michael said, we're fairly advanced in one section, and we know that we need to add parts in others. So we've got a team behind this team of UX designers and another developer that's worked. So we're sort of confident of being able to build that team quite quickly, and we can talk.
That's all priced and scoped as to what
it's priced and scoped to add. I mean, we can go through it after if you're interested, with 2 developers and 2 designers. So,
okay, thank you.
Ruben's got a question there. Katz.
Just a really quick one. Are all 3 of you full-time in the company today?
I'll take that one. No, we're not. We're all part-time, and so this is designed to get us full-time. I would say, like, we've done this we've got this far part-time, which feels like, from our side, like quite a great achievement. We've been working nights and weekends to build this tech over the last year and to test it, and we're kind of raring to go. And people have been pitching in and helping, but we're straining at the leash to go full-time on it. So.
And to confirm, the investment is for you all to go full-time?
The investment's to go full-time, yeah.
Anyone else? Any questions? I'm sure there's going to be plenty more as we get over drinks later on. Anyone else that want a burning question? Josh has got one.
Sorry, guys. You would have thought you were almost done. You mentioned your competitor who just got a buyout. How are you different to them, and actually, what other competitors do you have in this space?
So I would split that up a little bit. So there's the data visualization platforms like Flourish, and we're trying to do for data visualization. We're trying to do for text what the data visualization platforms have done. So on the other side of that question, there are companies who are building knowledge graphs from text. They tend to be sort of niche companies or aimed in a particular area and an enterprise. And I suppose we're looking at making this tool much more widely available, partly because as well as a practical way of finding our customers, there's also a kind of a vision around making information in an age where we have so much data but no one has any trust in it, making it more trustworthy, as well as finding better paths to well-sourced information. So.
Okay, I think that was the last of the questions. So another round of applause, please, for Matthew, Claire, and Michael with Graffinity. So let's move on to the third startup. So welcome to the stage, Suleiman and Adam with Hortlock.
Thank you, Ben. So my name is Suleiman, this is Adam, and we are providing technology for sustainability-linked loans. A little bit about ourselves. I graduated from law in 2020, and since then I've been training as an investment funds trainee lawyer and have worked with sustainable finance regulations for the past year. Adam has just finished his master's in engineering and has a background in programming. To explain what a sustainability-linked loan is, I will be using Sentient. Sentient is an agrochemical company that just took out Asia's largest sustainability-linked loan, amounting to $4.5 billion. Now, if they were to hit certain ESG targets, such as reducing the amount of greenhouse gas emissions by the end of the year, or increasing the number of women in managerial positions, then the interest rate on this loan will go down. In the past year, the amount of these loans issued grew by 300% and amounted to over $700 billion globally. And this year is set to outpace last year's numbers. But with any rapidly growing market, there are growing pains. And these are a few of them. Firstly, ESG targets need to be ambitious. If they're not ambitious, it could lead to companies cutting corners and down a path of greenwashing. Also, sustainability-linked loans are quite new in the grand scheme of finance. So there's great uncertainty with how to structure them. This leads to sustainable finance analysts at banks manually reviewing every sustainability report needed to structure a loan. And this can take up to a year. So we are developing software for banks to use to help speed up this process. A sustainable finance analyst at a bank can select a company to review. Our algorithm will then analyze the sustainability reports and strategies and provide relevant insights using historical data points. We will then spit out tailored targets for borrowers to use. We will also be collating all the benchmarks and metrics in one place to help determine whether a target is ambitious enough in an efficient manner.
So, by now, I hope you can see how important this tool will be in the industry. But don't just take our word for it. Take the word of one of the leading banks in sustainable finance. This is exactly what the industry needs right now. So far, we've created a clickable prototype, and we've shown this to our wide network of sustainable finance analysts at major banks, including BNP Paribas, ING, and MUFG, and we have gained sufficient user validation. And we are now in conversations with executives at large banks such as BlackRock and HSBC to gain our customer validation, and they are willing to do so as soon as we've developed our proof of concept, which is why we are here today. But in order for us to build this proof of concept, we need data, and a lot of it. And so we have started a partnership with Connect Earth, who are another startup who have developed data and extracted it from multiple reports and gathered it and given it to us so that we can build this. Our business has two routes to market. Our first route is through creating an API. This will integrate directly into the bank's existing IT infrastructure, and we will charge a yearly fee that will be priced according to the number of annual users that year. And our second route is through licensing. We will license to a third-party developer who already has standing relationships with these banks, and this can help us penetrate the financial industry. And we will charge a maintenance fee because the tool will inevitably need to be developed and maintained over the years to come, as this is a ballooning market. Now, in this ballooning market, there are competitors, and we have narrowed down our closest competitors to Green Signal, Clarity AI, and ARabesque. Firstly, for Green Signal, they specialize in sustainability-linked loans like us, but they ignore the importance of historical data, ambitiousness of a target, and the development of the tool itself. So they just developed a simple software that the borrower themselves can put the data in, and it just gives them their own target, but not the target that they need. So ARabesque and Clarity AI, they are focused in sustainable finance tools, nothing to do with sustainability-linked loans, and especially the structuring phase like we do. This is why we're different. So we are at the beginning of this. We're at the proof of concept phase, and we need to develop this proof of concept to join accelerator labs or potentially pilot projects with these financial institutions. So our phase 2 is to develop the prototype and join accelerator labs. And then once we've done this, we can build relationships with financial institutions through the connections and expertise that they will give us, and we can sell to the banks. And finally, we come here today to ask for your connections, to ask for your expertise in the industry to help us build these profitable relationships ourselves. And for us to go from a clickable prototype to a technology underpinned prototype, we are asking for 50,000 pre-seed for 5% stake in our company. Thank you.
Thank you so much for listening. Thank you so much for listening. Sustainability-linked loans will be a key lever that the finance industry will use to green the global economy. Help us enable this transition.
Now you can go. Fantastic, guys. So more questions from the audience. I'm going to kick it off with one myself. So banks, kind of notorious for being pretty big, pretty well funded, a lot of money behind them, a lot of resources. Why would they trust you to do this for them rather than doing it themselves?
Yeah, so with the rapid growth of this market, the demand has been stripping the supply of labor needed to allocate resources to target these pain problems. And we know this because we've been talking to analysts at banks such as ING, and they've been relieved that someone like us are working on this project. And right now, we bring a partnership with Connect Earth, as well as a network of ESG analysts, and the time and determination that freshly faced graduates have.
So you're willing to take the challenge, and they are just moving so quickly. Yeah, that's your premise. Okay. Any questions from the floor? Dylan.
Thanks. Great pitch, guys. Yeah, by far the best I've heard. You described your products really good. How much time and or money is it going to take for you to develop your product to the point of where it's a proof of concept that can be paid for by a bank?
Yeah, so right now we're consulting with an external CTO who has 20 years in experience, and he will be breaking our pre-seed fund round into agile costing development sprints, and this will last 6 months. By then, we hope we have joined a accelerator lab such as ING or Barclays, and through them, another 6 months, we will hope to have developed an MVP. And through that, we'll be able to develop a pilot program to work with a bank.
Any other? Jeff, was that you asking a question?
I was going to, but I will do. Yeah, that was a fantastic pitch, and it was great talking to you guys earlier on. The concern is about the 50,000. It's not a lot, and it won't last a long time, and the amount of horsepower you're going to have to put into it is going to be much, much bigger. How long do you see that initial money starting? That was the phase 1. And what about phases 2 and 3?
Yep. So phase 1 will last 6 months, and we will be breaking down this 50,000 with the experienced CTO into those development sprints. And through that, after another 6 months, then we will be seeking another round.
And I think the question back to Jeff is how much more than 50,000 is he wanting to invest in?
Yes, which we can have a chat about afterwards.
Any other questions? Yeah, Max over there.
It's notoriously hard to kind of measure performance against, as you said, it's so easy to greenwash. How are you going to actually know that people have delivered what they need to deliver to validate the loans?
So these loans, they need to be audited externally. So this already in itself validates the targets that are set and then the data that they're giving back to the lender. And with our tool, we'll be able to have an external third-party auditor because we aren't doing the final stages of the loan. We're focusing on the structuring phase. So we're just giving them, from the data that they provided through the audits and the company reports and the scrape data that we're getting, we will provide them with the most suitable tools for their company. So the loan itself is dealt with by the bank. We're doing the important phase that takes the longest at the start.
I think Ruben had a question there as well, yeah.
At the risk of sounding like a grumpy venture capitalist, without a product or a MVP, what makes you think you're worth £950,000 today?
Over the past year, we've been gaining validation from ESG analysts, from ING, MUFG, and BNP Paribas. And through then, we haven't rushed directly into creating a proof of concept. We've been trying to reiterate our idea down to the granular details to pinpoint what exactly pain problems they're facing. And we believe that this is just the beginning, that this could be targeted towards corporations such as Coca-Cola and Tesco, who need to determine ESG targets. And this product can also be used further down the line to measure the loan. So although we're beginning with the structuring, we can see it move on beyond finance.
Any other questions? James.
Thank you for that. That was an incredible pitch and really good speaking to you earlier as well. Just more a comment. Looking at the trade or the relationship between products and obviously getting into finance, there are a lot of these very large trade bodies, Cargill, Louis Dreyfus, Bunge, and they have a lot of that data sort of in their system about what actually happens with the farmers and the smallholders. So I just say along your product development route, touch base with them.
Thank you.
Any other questions at all? No? Fantastic. In which case, a great round of applause for Suleiman and Adam. And now just the opportunity to hear from the other set of startups that were out in the Expo. So to make sure you've not missed on any of the startups that you could see today, we've got a second video. So all of the other startups that were there, let's see from them.
At Sentient Sports, we use AI and advanced data analytics to help professional sports teams and organisations improve their decision making, both on and off the pitch. To date, we have worked with top teams across the Premier League and Europe as one of the world's largest sports agencies. This has helped us to ensure that our tech can drive value at the highest level of sports. The teams that have used our tech in the latest season, on average, have improved their points per game by 10% compared to the previous season. This shows the potential for improving performance through better decision making. Up to this point, we have bootstrapped for the last 18 months, but we're now looking to raise a round of £500,000 through an EIS seed round, and therefore we'd love to connect to any investors who are interested in the AI or sports tech space.
AccelerComm is a 5G IP licensing company. We design the hardware and software implementing the Level 1 protocol stack defined by 3GPP for the 5G standard. The design is used to connect 5G devices to the wireless network, and our business model is to license these designs to companies who want to manufacture semiconductor chips or use programmable FPGAs in their end equipment. We can double the data throughput of a given frequency range with advanced algorithms which improve the signal sensitivity. We have recently secured deals with US hyperscaler and a Tier 1 US technology company, showing a 91% year-on-year bookings growth. We are currently raising for a Series B round, and we wish to fund an engineering expansion to complete the extra products on our roadmap.
Radii devices provide AI-driven software to support clinicians delivering the best quality of fit, transforming the lives of patients with evidence-based design. We recently closed our seed round and are about to start our multi-centre clinical trials of our software to improve the fitting of prosthetic limbs within the NHS. We'd like to chat to potential partners or mentors about our go-to-market strategy.
CareIQ is an AI-powered digital platform used by clinicians to improve how patients with chronic diseases are managed. We're currently scaling the number of clinics powered by CareIQ and are working with key stakeholders in the NHS to pilot features such as early cancer detection. We're also in the middle of raising our SEIS and EIS investment round. If you have connections to healthcare or are interested in investing, we'd love to chat.
OhmSpace is a new space company commercializing pioneering propulsion solutions for the rapidly growing satellite industry. We offer the world's first high-temperature resistojet, which is a very efficient engine for satellites to perform their missions and deliver their services like never before. We have secured multiple grants for a total exceeding £1 million over the last 3 years to continue developing our first product with an early adopter. We are currently raising a 7-figure seed round to reach quickly the market with our first product by the start of 2024. We would like to talk to and connect with potential investors interested in joining a specialized VC leading the round.
If you're interested in connecting with any of the startups that you've seen in Demo Day, then make sure you use info@futureworlds.com. The link is in the description.
Fantastic. So it gives a real sense of the journey that the startups are going on, journeys that start here and quite how far they go and where they can get to. And of course, the journeys of all of those startups are far from finished. There's so much more that they're going to be going on to. But let's carry on with the live pitches. You had a bit of a sneak peek on who may be coming up next. Let's welcome the next startup to the stage. So welcoming Grace and Christian and Pedro with AMRSS.
Hi, we're AMRSS. AMRSS provide AI solutions for real-time aerodynamic performance analysis, enabling racing teams to make informed in-race decisions. Having a perfect aerodynamic understanding can unlock the last few tenths that make the difference between winning and losing a world championship. Over the last 10 years, Mercedes F1 have dominated the sport because they've had a better aerodynamic understanding than any other team on the grid. This year, with the rule changes, it's sent F1 teams into chaos, and Mercedes have dropped from being a winner down to a third-place team at best. This problem has been caused by porpoising. This is where the aerodynamic loads change along the straight, causing the car to violently bounce up and down. And teams need a perfect insight to the aerodynamics to fix problems like this. Losing the World Championship can represent a loss in prize money of about 20 million euros, but the prestige is worth way more, at almost an estimated 12 billion euros. And this is not an isolated incident and can happen to any team at any time. Currently, with hundreds of sensors measuring thousands of different parameters on the vehicle, teams still do not have this complete aerodynamic insight. To get this, they either need to add these huge rakes, which disrupt the airflow and require the team to do a lot more work to get anything useful from. Or they can use these specialized paints, which give a great visualization of what's happening, but no data for the teams to quantify. And both of these methods can't be used during a race. Our solution looks to combine AI and the simulation data the teams collect to learn the aerodynamic trends of the vehicle. Using just a few sensors, we can reconstruct that flow field so that teams get the aerodynamic insight they require. So our system looks to minimize the number of additional sensors, be non-intrusive to the flow, and do all of this in real time so that teams can make decisions in critical moments of the weekend.
So we plan to use motorsport as a starting point due to their ability and willingness to spend on innovation, as well as their urgency to develop new tech with each season. Motorsport will be our proof of concept, as they have a clear history of being an incubator for other technology which have gone on to expand into wider industry. Some examples of application of our tech in the wider industry are improvement of EV range, maintenance and operation of wind turbines, and control system of aircraft. So we plan to start off as a consultancy-style service, tailoring the tech to each individual motorsport team. This will be for the next 12 months with a primary focus on developing and de-risking the tech. After 12 months, our next steps will be productization, such that it can be sold as a standalone software package at scale.
Over the last 8 months, we've worked to validate a prototype of our tool in an experimental setting, achieving state-of-the-art results that demonstrate the feasibility of our tech. We've also made initial contacts with multiple members of the F1 community, and as a result of their positive feedback, we've begun to make advances on these conversations. But why are we the right people to do this? Well, it's a combination of 3 key things. Firstly, we're all equipped with the necessary niche skills to be able to develop this tech, specifically machine learning and aerodynamics. This very few people have in industry. We're also very young engineers, and so we can bring the latest developments in AI to bring a new solution to the problem. Finally, AI is developing fast, so this is the critical moment to do this.
So who are we? Well, the 3 of us met as our part of our undergraduate studies here at the University of Southampton in aerospace and mechanical engineering. I'm leading our shared vision, with Grace and Pedro working part-time to support the business. I've decided to commit the next 12 months to this because I believe this is the critical moment to develop this software and grow the business. Today, we're looking for someone who can help us build connections. Use those connections to develop business partnerships so we can validate our technology in a commercial setting. In the next 12 months, once we've done this, we'll be looking to raise investment so we can expand into the wider industries we've outlined. AMRSS, revolutionizing real-time aerodynamic performance analysis, one industry at a time. Thank you.
Fantastic. Thank you, guys. So we're going to kick off with questions again, so I'm going to kick that off. So AmRS, you're focusing on F1 to start with, but how big could this go?
Yeah, as we said in the pitch, we want to expand into the aerospace, automotive, and renewable sectors today. But tomorrow we feel like this will be an enabler for innovation, going into the wider sectors of urban air mobility, but also digital twinning.
Great. And any questions from the floor? Josh, a mechanical engineer by heart.
Yeah, really great pitch, guys, and like a really interesting area of application and showing the kind of the current need for it. My question is that you said that the product is dependent on data from whoever you're partnering with. So for it to be used within your software, how much onboarding are you expecting in terms of integrating their designs and their kind of unique data systems to actually make them into a partner and get them using your software?
So the data we use to build our model is based on computational fluid dynamics data, or CFD, which is a fairly standardized piece of data set. So in terms of integrating with the teams, it will just be about understanding how they structure that data and then matching that to optimize it for our systems.
Any other questions? Dylan.
Guys, really slick pitch, really, really good. My question is about your competitors. Who's out there doing similar things? Who are you going to be coming up against when you're trying to sell to these companies?
So our competitors are already people in the industry. People are trying to tackle this problem, but they've had limited success because the approaches typically used are more empirical and hands-on methods instead of more black box approaches using AI. So really we need to just be able to prove to people that this is the method to use over their existing methods, and yeah, from there.
Dan.
Great pitch, guys. What kind of computational resource do you need to do this initial work, and have you got access to it over 12 months?
So yeah, we'll be a lot of the work we've already done so far. We used the sort of university resources. In terms of going forwards, we'll be looking to use sort of cloud-based services to do that computation, and using sort of grant money to fund that.
Looks like Toby's got a question over there.
Yeah, good pitch and really interesting idea. I'm curious why the F1 teams have pretty big budgets for CFD, and you're trying to make the car go faster. So why is it they haven't succeeded in doing this when 3 young smart guys from Southampton have, and how are you protecting it to make sure that they can't nick your idea once they find out about it?
So based on the conversations we've had with F1 teams, we think they've tried sort of more numerical-based methods to enable this aerodynamic insight. But from what we know, we're bringing a completely new approach to solve the problem with AI. And so particularly one of the things that our tool is really good at is dealing with noisy environments, which is something teams struggle with in F1. So already there, we're bringing a new step to the current methods that they're using. And to protect the IP.
Yeah. So the plan with the software is to be able to collect data from multiple teams or multiple sources, so that our model is better than anyone else can do with just a singular team, for example, Mercedes. And then as we scale into other industries, the generalization of our model will exceed what a competitor can do because they won't have access to the same amount of data.
Any other questions? Oh, yeah, it looks like Ruben's got a question.
Great pitch. Can you be a bit more specific about the commercial status of your current conversations with the F1 teams? You say you're talking to them, but are you talking about pilots or trials or?
Our conversations have been fairly limited. We've had sort of early stage, just getting over that sort of understanding where their pain points are. We haven't sort of made advances in terms of setting up commercial deals yet.
And that would be a great advantage for people that are watching your pitch who could maybe help with that, would be an area that you'd be looking to advance in before asking a VC for his money, perhaps, as well. Any other questions? Jeff.
Thanks. I mean, again, great pitch, guys. It really was. My question comes back to something that's come up with the other people in the audience about the difference between standard CFD packages and what is different. That didn't come over in your pitch to me. This is going to be a technical sell, so that point needs to come over. And the other thing is, have you spoken to all the traditional CFD software companies?
Yeah, so our model is built on CFD data. What we're trying to do is leverage the insight and the physics-based modeling that CFD does and learn those trends to then apply inputs from the real world so that it gives exactly what's happening instead of in CFD where there's limitations and simplifications done to actually solve those equations.
And perhaps the support of someone who's been a past president at the Institute of Mechanical Engineering might be quite helpful to you on that journey, Jeff. Yes, question over there.
Sorry, it's more of an observation and less of a question. I think that I work loosely in the aerospace industry, and some of the issues that you raised there in terms of access to what is hugely commercially sensitive information in an incredibly competitive world in every one of those industries, whether it's F1 or aerospace. Accessing all the team's information to provide an outcome, I think just sounds like a very, very difficult proposition to sell. And I think it's just something that really needs to be considered very carefully, because no team will want anything other than an advantage over the other team, so they won't want to share.
Yeah, that's something we've considered is the potential that teams won't want to share data, and we would be happy to have an exclusivity agreement at some additional cost. But yeah, exactly.
Great. Any other questions? Fantastic. In which case, another round of applause, please, for Christian, Grace, and Pedro. So now, last but definitely not least, time for our last startup. Please welcome to the stage Devon Lewis with Inpulse.
Inpulse is building wearable devices to help sports teams track the health and performance of their players' muscles. 3 years ago, Eden Hazard was one of the most talented and valuable football players on the planet. He signed a 5-year deal with Real Madrid worth around £150 million. But before his first season even started, he suffered a hamstring injury that led to a devastating cycle of 14 back-to-back injuries, putting him out for over 450 days. And despite having a world-leading team of physiotherapists and coaches around him, Real Madrid couldn't get him back to peak performance. And this isn't an isolated issue. It's estimated that Premier Leagues lose around £900 million every season just because of injuries. £900 million, and that's just in the top 20 teams in the UK. So what is it about injuries like this that are so difficult to manage? Well, movements of our body are coordinated by a whole range of muscles, and it can be really difficult to know what the individual contribution of each muscle is. If a single muscle is tired or injured, others can pick up the slack without anyone noticing, until one critical movement pushes the muscle too hard, and it's game over. Injuries like this can end a player's career in an instant, and teams still don't have the ability to monitor the performance of each muscle and to know how close each muscle is to breaking point for the majority of their training and rehabilitation. So muscle sensing technology does exist, it's called EMG, but it's incredibly unreliable. Recordings are affected by everything from sensor placement, movements of the electrodes, changes in sweat, body fat, movements of the athlete. All of this means that outside of a highly controlled lab experiment, data is completely unreliable. And sports teams know this. I have a PhD developing muscle sensing technology, and I've developed a game-changing new way to directly measure muscle fatigue in a performance sports setting. I've developed this in partnership over the last 6 months with Premier League physiotherapists and performance coaches, and it finally gives teams access to muscle analytics during the whole process of injury recovery. Players just need to pull on the sleeve and go through physio, strength and conditioning and training like normal, but now everyone on the team, from the physios to the coaches, performance analysts to the executives, all have reliable muscle analytics for every player at every stage of injury. Physios and coaches can also set fatigue warnings, so in a chaotic training scene, they'll be notified if any muscle of any player is being pushed too hard the moment it happens. All of this means that players can be sure that they're pushing the exact right amount to recover as fast as possible without any risk of injury from overtraining. I'm in contact with 8 Premier League clubs, and while setting up a trial with Liverpool, their head of performance and recovery said that he's been searching for this technology for 25 years, and that it could be game-changing for almost every injury they see. So on average, each Premier League team loses around £45 million every year because of injuries. That's £900 million in the Premier League. It's £2.7 billion in the top 18 EU leagues. And it's around £6.5 billion across pro and college sports in America. Over next year, I'm going to be working through trials with Premier League teams with the aim of scaling to support 3 to 5 teams by the end of the year. Into the next year, I'll be working on a commercial partnership to help scale to support 20 teams, alongside a £200,000 grant to help progress the medical and defense applications of the technology. Into 2025, I expect to be expanding into EU markets, and 2026 out into America. I'm raising £900,000 to support the production of 2,000 to 3,000 devices, hire a team of 3 developers, a sports physio, and a CFO with experience securing public funding. It's hard to overstate how important it is to get this technology out to the market as fast as possible, because injuries like this aren't just an issue for elite athletes. Globally, muscle and joint disorders are the leading cause of pain and disability. It affects 1 in every 2 adults. Last year, it was estimated to cost around £3.5 trillion in the US alone. And that value is growing 4 times the rate the economy can keep up with. As a society, we desperately need a better way to prevent and recover from injuries. Over the next 10 years, I aim to make this technology as accessible as heart rate sensors are today. Inpulse has the potential to completely change the way we recover from injuries and corner a multi-trillion-pound market. Because there is no future where muscle analytics don't form a part of everyday life, and this is the only viable technology to make that happen. So I want you on board as we grow from our first customer to the global market leader in muscle analytics. Thank you.
Thank you, Devon. So, final chance for questions. I'm going to kick it off. You talk about this first milestone, getting your first customer contract. How are you going to get to that point?
So I've been in talks with Premier League clubs for the last 6 months. The trial that I'm looking to set up first is starting around August. So over the next few months, I'm going to be working to set up all the contracts and get them all signed off to get that nailed as soon as possible.
Fantastic. There's a question there from James, I can see.
Thank you. Incredible pitch. Really like that. And speaking to you earlier, I know you can't speak about the details of the tech, but just in terms of the pathway to getting the patent, how complex is it? And how easy is it to be replicated in places like China?
So there's 2 core components of the technology that are being drafted at the moment. There's 2 fundamental ways that I think if the patent's held up and I go down the venture route and have the money to defend it, that it would be incredibly difficult to replicate without infringing on the patents. Also, on top of that, this technology has been built out over the last 4 years, and it's incredibly difficult to get electronics into clothing. I'm sure there's a few people in the crowd that work in the research groups at uni doing that. And there's a whole range of technical problems that I've solved over the last few years that even if people did replicate the pattern, it would still take them a long time and a lot of development to get to that point.
Any other questions? Dylan, you've got one.
Really great pitch and lovely slides. Really, really nice. My question is about your growth plans. So you've got this very ambitious plan over the next few years in terms of your numbers of quantity of contracts, but also the value of them. But it also sounds like you have a very, very long sales cycle that's taking about 8 months if you do sign in August with the first club. How are you going to balance those 2 things where you have a long sales cycle and a ambitious growth plan?
The sales cycle in Premier League clubs doesn't actually seem to be long as I expected. When I first went in, I was looking to collaborate between all these different areas of the club, but just looking at medical services and performance, it is quite closely tied in. And the few teams that I've been speaking to at the moment, so it's 8 teams I'm in talks with. 4 of those I'm arranging trials, 1 of them is arranged. And the turnaround does seem a lot quicker than I expected.
And the bullishness around the growth, so that's what gives you confidence that you can be bullish?
Absolutely.
Dan?
Do you see any limitations in delivering the actual clothing? You just highlighted it's quite hard to make, and you've got 8 Premier League teams with 30 deep squads, each with 2 legs. That's quite a lot of sleeves.
Yeah, so that's why I'm looking to go through trials until the middle of next year, and with the aim to only support 3 to 5 clubs by the end of the year. Because the technology, I could just run a huge batch and get that out to as many teams as possible, but I think the sort of growing pains of getting that out to clubs is going to be a significant issue, and this timeline is accounting for all of that.
Ruben?
yeah, really like the way you described the product and the problem. Are there any regulatory issues relating to medical compliance that you need to navigate?
So going forward, we've got a grant to push the medical applications of the technology. At the moment, the current state of the solution that I'm selling to football teams, I don't need medical certification. Again, going out to America is a different situation, and that's why that's pushed back. But for now, everything's certified and compliant.
Any other questions? In which case, another round of applause, please, for Devon. Why do we do this, though? Why do we get the startups pitching? Why do we pull you all together to hear these startups pitch? We do it because we see time and time again the enormous impact, the enormous potential that some of the brilliant founders have here on campus here in Southampton. And you've seen today through the startups that have been pitching on this stage and the startups that you've met in the expo out there of quite how impressive and how far these world-changing founders can go. But it's not just the technology, and it's not just the founders. It is also the connections between those founders and that technology, and people who can help them get it out to market, people who can help them connect with the right investors or the right partners or the right customers, so that the people, the technology, the startup can get into the right place and seize the opportunity that they can make the most of. And that's why we do this, to bring people together. And we've seen, again, time and time again, the enormous transformation that happens when the right people speak to the founders, when they make those connections. So do not underestimate, any of you in this room, how much difference you can make to any of these 5 startups or any of the startups in the expo. Just from a conversation, maybe it's some advice, maybe it is a connection that you have, or maybe it is investment that you want to offer to them. Never underestimate how much difference that can make. That's why we do it. That's why we will keep on doing it, because we see just how incredible these people are. And I'm sure you will all agree that all of these 5 startups were immensely impressive today. But I do have some results. So I can tell you that the winner of the 5-star votes was Inpulse. And I can tell you that we're also combining the two to give an overall winner, but it's going to be really straightforward because the winner of the favourite was Inpulse too. And so with a clean sweep, Devon, you are crowned the winner of Demo Day 2022. And so that leaves me just to say, well done to all of you founders. Thank you, because you are all absolutely amazing. Thank you, mentors, investors, partners, for coming and joining us today. Thank you for the generous support that you give to the founders in Future Worlds over time. It does make such a difference. And thank you to the wonderful team that I have a privilege of working with, hidden in the background, the Future Worlds team, Alex, Kate, and John, and the tech team that have put this all on today. Thank you very much indeed. And so that is all from us today. If you're coming to the reception, great. Looking forward to catching up with you then. One final round of applause for all of these startups. Thank you.